this video, we will discuss all features associated to security, including those related to cybersecurity. Let's first take a look to the document that comes with the video, just to see the different aspects of security. There are two main aspects. The first one is we want to protect access to T-Box, and we want to protect data against reading when data is exchanged between T-Box and a server, for instance. To protect access, we will consider reprogramming T-Box, protection when changing values in T-Box, protection when displaying HTML pages with a login in HTTP and with HTTP session authentication. We will see how we can filter all IP communication with the help of a firewall embedded. We will see how we can detect brute force attack to prevent denial of service. And we will see how we can protect SSH communication, which is a communication at Linux level. Regarding data protection, well, we will first see how we can protect our T-Box application, so the file that we developed with Twinsoft. And by the way, this file has its content encrypted, so if it contains certificates, logins, they are encrypted and cannot be read. We will see how we can protect the complete project by applying a signature to the application. We will see how we can protect data communication, which is HTTP, FTP, and SMTP with the help of SSL. And finally, T-Box support OpenVPN, which allows to encapsulate any communication, providing access protection as well as data protection. Okay, let's go back to Twinsoft. Most of the configuration will be done in the RTU properties. So in the RTU properties, I have a tab protection. I go into this tab, and the first thing we will protect is our document. So the Twinsoft document we are running at the moment, we will protect it with a password. So I just click here. So let's take as password John. Okay. This is not sufficient. I need at least 6 characters. Okay, so let's take John 007. John 007. Okay. So I click OK here. I save. I will reopen this document. To reopen the document, I can just click File, and I select my document here, and it opens. And when it opens, I have to enter a login. John 007. Mine, it is case sensitive. Okay. So this is the first protection. It's to protect your document. To protect programming T-Box, we go into our RTU properties, our tab protection, and we have first to activate access security. When access security is activated, we have to define users, and we can see we have 3 different ways of defining users. The 2 first are mainly for legacy devices, so I invite you to select the user list, which is the most convenient one. So you have a window in which you can define users. And when you define a user, you will see you have to define a level. There are 3 possible levels. Let's take a look to our document that comes with the video, just to see the 3 different levels. So the engineer is level 3. This is required to program T-Box. It can also change any tag and any value. A level 2 operator or read-write can only change tags that have been configured as write aloud in a defined range. Then you have the level 1 which is read-only. So I go back into Twinsoft. I will define user, so I will start with an engineer, so I will simply call it engineer. The password will also be engineer. The name is only capital letters, but password accept any letters, any characters, and is case sensitive. So password is also engineer, and the level, you select the level engineer. Okay. I will create a second user. I will call it operator. Password operator also. Operator, I repeat, and the level is read write. Okay, okay. So once we have defined the users, we can associate those users to some service or protocol. The list of ports we have here allows to protect programming T-Box. So we will allow the programming to certain ports, and we will apply the protection to other ports. So if I want to protect a port, I just click this port. So if I want to protect the GSM and I want to protect the Ethernet because I'm at the moment connected to Ethernet, I just click the port I want to protect. So those ports are protected, and if I want to send the program to the T-Box, I will need to log as engineer, because remember, for programming T-Box, you must have an access level engineer. By the way, if you look at the status bar here, you can see that we are online in a level engineer. So when access security is not activated, T-Box is by default not protected and at engineer level. So let's click OK, send to T-Box, and test the protection of sending the program. T-Box has restarted. So let's first log out. So I go to the Tools menu and I do a logout so that I can test the different access level. Okay, so we can see now I am in read-only mode because I'm not logged. So I will log as operator. So if I log in operator, okay, I see I am now logged as read-write, so level 2. We can see it also in the status bar, and if I try to send the program to T-Box, it refuses. You are not authorized. Please log in as engineer. What I will do, so tools, login, engineer. Okay, level 3, and now I'm able to send the program. Okay, let's take a look to protection on other services. So I go back into my RTU properties, protection. So read SMS protection. So this relates to the fact that it is possible to send SMS to T-Box to control T-Box. And you might require a login before sending a command to T-Box. So the SMS will include a login mechanism. I will record a video later on just dedicated to this read SMS feature. HTTP protection. This relates to the protection to display HTML page in T-Box. When the browser will connect to T-Box, they will have a login window in which you will have to enter name and password in order to access T-Box. Just to give you an overview, so this looks like this. Okay, when you connect with the browser to the IP of T-Box, whichever port, whether it's local Ethernet or through GSM, you might have this kind of window to enter a login. This protection applies to any communication port you would access to display HTML pages. So not the port you have checked here. This is only for programming and for Modbus. FTP protection. This relates to accessing the SD card in T-Box. So the SD card can be used as alarm recipient to send files. Those files can be read by any FTP client software, they will be in a public directory. In case you would like to delete files, you have to activate this FTP protection. Modbus TCP protection. So the protection is applied to the port, so it means anyone connecting to T-Box will have to log in. Once a user has logged, the port is unprotected. But IP communication runs on socket, and you can protect individually each one connecting to T-Box. So for this you will have to check this option, Modbus TCP protection on socket. Brute force protection. Let's just take a look to the help, which is very useful and provides a lot of information. So what is brute force protection? So a brute force attack is a method to obtain information into a system, typically password and identification. In a brute force attack, automated software is used to generate a large number of consecutive guesses. So in fact, it corresponds to robots sending bursts of requests to T-Box. This can affect the system and cause what we call denial of service. That the T-Box is busy such a long time to handle those communication that it can affect the process. So you can activate the protection against this kind of attack, and when you activate this, in the advanced menu you have some settings for this brute force protection into the tab security. So you have the maximum number of successive failures accepted, an interval between the failures, and a blacklist timeout applied to the source IP addresses attacking T-Box. Let's go back to protection. Concerning HTTP, we have supplementary protection in the tab IP security. So HTTP is mostly used when browser connects to T-Box. The first option is to have a session authentication, which means that each client connecting to T-Box will have a session ID in T-Box, and this session will be open when the client logs, and it will automatically be closed if the client leaves the browser or after a period of inactivity. So each session will be individually handled by T-Box, and T-Box supports maximum 64 HTTP sessions. HTTPS, this consists in encrypting data, which means hiding data exchange between the browser and the T-Box. To establish this kind of communication, you need a certificate and a key. The certificate can be either signed by an authority, so it will be recognized by the browser when it connects, or it can be self-signed. In such case, you can click here, generate, and you can put some information related to your company. And in such case, the browser will not recognize the certificate and you will have to edit manually. So let's take a look to a browser for which I have this example. So if I connect to Google, for instance, of course, Google certificate has been signed by an authority, which is Google Trust Service. Here I have a link to a T-Box which has a self-signed certificate. So you see the log here as an exclamation mark indicating I have added the certificate manually. So I have taken a snapshot of this to give you an idea. So this is the document coming with the video. And it's an example with Firefox. So the first time you connect in HTTPS to a T-Box with a self-signed certificate, you have a warning from Firefox. You click on the Advanced button, and from this button you can add the certificate to the store of the browser. Then you will be able to connect to this T-Box even if the certificate is not signed. Supplementary protection. We can disable HTTP, meaning that only encrypted communication will be allowed to T-Box. As we are here, we have this SSH login. So SSH is the protocol used at Linux level. So it's very important you change the default login. So you put your own login. So John, myself. Next feature in this window, and an important one, the firewall. So when we enable firewall, we will block all incoming IP access to T-Box. Then you have to add exceptions. So I click OK here, and I go into the folder IP security firewall, and you see I have a folder which has been grayed out, which is the input folder in which I will add exception for input communication. By the way, the forward directory relates to forwarding IP communication when we have activated the router and the gateway functionality of T-Box. But first, anyway, we have to add input exception. So the first exception I will put is regarding Modbus communication, because Twinsoft uses Modbus to communicate to the T-Box. So if we want to be able to access T-Box with Twinsoft, we have to add the service Modbus. Then we can select which IP source, which MAC source we will allow to access T-Box. I will leave any IP source, but it can be a single IP address or it can be a subnet. MAC source, well, it can be any or a single MAC address. The limit concerns the number of SYN, so of requests to open a socket, the T-Box will accept. After that, it will wait 1 second. So I will put a limit of, let's say, 5 requests per second. Then you select which communication, on which communication port you allow this service. So let's accept it to the 3 IP communication port, which are the 2 Ethernet and the GSM. OK. Then Twinsoft also communicates through SSH. You see here on the status line we have an indication of SSH connection. The SSH is used when sending a program to T-Box. In fact, sending the program, it will be sending a file through SSH protocol. So SSH has also to be allowed. So I will add a new exception, service SSH. Once again, any IP source, any MAC address, limit the same. And I will allow this only on COM3 and COM4, COM3 and COM8, because let's imagine my COM4 is just used for local Modbus communication. We have activated HTTPS in T-Box to allow displaying HTML page in encrypted communication. So I will have to add this exception in T-Box too. So service HTTPS, source any and MAC any, and I will allow this also to COM3 or COM8. OK. Next exception, the ping. So the ping use a protocol which is called ICMP, which I can select if I take the service custom, and then I can select the protocol ICMP. And I will allow the ping only on COM3 and COM8 again. OK. By the way, you see that if you select the service custom, then if you select the TCP or UDP protocol, you can type any TCP or UDP port. OK. Let's now send this to T-Box and check that we still can communicate. Oh, I see I am offline, so I will reactivate communication. So communication PC setup. I communicate through Ethernet, so I select this option. If you communicate through USB, you will click this option. OK. I'm online and I am in read-only effectively because we have activated access security. So first log in as an engineer. So engineer, okay. And I am logged now as engineer, and let's send. Let's take a look to this send window here and this security part. As mentioned in the first video, we want to draw your attention to security features, and we see here that we have already activated 3 of them, which is the firewall, the HTTPS and the SSH credential that has been changed. Okay, good. So let's send. T-Box has now restarted, and hopefully it still communicates. So if I display my list of tags, yes, I can see my list of tags. I can identify T-Box, so I still can communicate to my T-Box. So at least the Modbus exception is active. Now, let's imagine that you have done some mistake in your exceptions, that you have missed some exception. You have activated the firewall, but you have forgotten to create the exception and you send the program to T-Box. Well, you will have no more IP access to T-Box. There is one possibility to restore communication to T-Box. It is doing the global reset. To illustrate this global reset, I have resent the program in which I have removed the firewall exception. So in fact, all IP communication is blocked in T-Box without any exception. So when I try to establish communication to T-Box, TwinSoft returns me this window telling me that, okay, it fails to connect. So I click OK. And I will show you the manipulation you have to do on T-Box to set the T-Box in a global reset. So global reset means that the T-Box will run a factory program without firewall, without any access protection. So you have this button here in the middle of the CPU. I will press to the reset side. So the reset is on this side here. I will press and maintain, and the run LED will flash different colors, and I will let it flash 3 times green, and then I will release the button. So it starts flashing, 1, 2, 3, and I release the button. Now the T-Box will restart, and you will see that the run LED will then flash at 0.5 Hertz, indicating that T-Box is in stop program, and in our case, in stop program with the factory program. It doesn't mean that the existing programming T-Box is deleted. So if I just press a single reset, the existing program in T-Box will restart. I just load another program. So you see this LED now flash at 0.5 Hertz. Now if I try to establish communication to the IP address 192.168.199, which is the default IP address, I restore communication, and you see I am logged as engineer because access security is also deactivated. So I will add my exception. So I have recreated the firewall exception, so we can send the program again and confirm it still communicates afterwards. Let's take a look to the LED activity on T-Box when it restarts. T-Box has now restarted. We can see the LED is now flashing at 2 Hertz, and I still communicate perfectly well my tags and my RTU identification. Let's go back to firewall and discuss a little bit about the port. The port, either TCP or UDP, is a filtering criteria for the exception, and this can be used to increase the access security. So each service has a default port, which is for Modbus, for instance, 502. Those ports can be changed. So if I go to the RTU properties, advanced ports, I see all IP services supported by T-Box with their default port. So the port Modbus, for instance, I can change it, for instance, to 1502. Okay. So if I go back to the firewall exception Modbus, I see that the port has been updated. You can increase access security in T-Box by changing the default port to custom ports, and the firewall rule will adapt themselves. Next feature, the application signature. So let's take a look to the document. So this feature can be applied to test the validity of the T-Box using a certificate. So the idea is that we have a CA signed certificate or a self-signed certificate, which is used to sign the T-Box application and which is sent to the T-Box. So when the application will be signed by Twinsoft and sent to T-Box, T-Box will compare the application signature with its certificate. If it fits, the application will be loaded inside T-Box. If you want to have a detailed procedure of how to apply this signature, I invite you to go to the help in the how to sign the application, and then we have the detail of each step to use this application signature. Last subject related to security, the VPN. So T-Box supports OpenVPN. So you can add a VPN connection to T-Box, and this VPN connection can be either server or can be client. And the T-Connect Client 1 is a specific one connecting to one of our software, allowing easy connection to T-Box. But they will have a video just for this T-Connect connection. So T-Box can be server, T-Box can be client, two existing T-Box, two existing PCs, building a private encrypting connection. By the way, when this VPN connection is built, it will provide a new IP interface with its communication variable, allowing you to check the link, to check the IP address received or the VPN state, like you would have for any other communication port. This is it for this video about security. For your information, we have a document that covers all aspects of security in T-Box. So this document called T-Box Cyber Security Best Practice, and it provides a lot of explanation and details about everything related to cyber security. So this document could also be used to help you to define the best way and the best feature your application will need in terms of security. Now let's take a look to the questionnaire. Use the same application as usual. So activate access security, select user list and create two users, one with an engineer level, the other one with a read-write level, and you will call them engineer and operator with the same password to make things easier for later in the video. Then you activate protection on the port COM3, COM5, COM8. This will activate protection on Ethernet and USB, depending on which communication port you use. Send the application to T-Box, and at T-Box Startup, do a logout. And doing a logout the first time after protection has been activated, you might see this message. But still, checking the status bar, you should be in read only. Test the login as engineer and as operator. Then activate HTTP protection and HTTP session authentication. Activate the firewall and create 5 exceptions for the protocol Modbus, SSH, HTTP, HTTPS and ping, which correspond to the protocol ICMP. And just send us your application once you have done everything. Good luck!